And hello, everyone. So today I'm going to walk you through how you can use the AWS command line interface, AWS CLI, to create a virtual machine instance from an existing image in Symphony. And here we've got the Symphony master console with our overview showing. And if I go into Compute Virtual Machines, and just put in a string text search for I-, which is the prefix for AWS instances, both here in Symphony and in AWS itself, you could see that we don't have any currently set up. I've also got a terminal window open, and I've got my AWS CLI set up. So let's go ahead and look at what we do have already pre-configured. And I'll do an EC2, and then ask it to describe my VPCs. And we've already got a couple set up in this particular Symphony cluster. And I've already set my endpoint URL information. So this is the actual AWS CLI. It's simply been directed to communicate with the Symphony cluster, whose GUI you could see in the background. And here we could see that we've got a couple of VPCs set up for us to use already. I could do the same thing, but tell it to describe subnets. And we'll see in just a couple seconds that I've also set up a couple of subnets that we can use. Now, to keep things simple, I have already gone ahead and created the command to create the new instance for us. So I'm going to paste that in here, but we'll be able to walk through it. I am instructing EC2 to perform the run instances command. The image ID is a Windows 2012 image that we've already uploaded into our Symphony cluster. And you can see its AMI ID right there. I've informed it to use a specific security group. And in the instance type, Symphony already recognizes the standard AWS instance type. So here I've just selected M1 large. I've also told it what subnet to use. Now, you can feel free to use nearly all of the optional parameters for the run instances command. In our case, we just wanted to use these few to show you what's possible. So as I hit enter here, keep an eye in the background on our compute screen that's searching for any instances with the I- prefix. And what we'll see is that as this instance is created in Symphony, we'll see that show up. And then, of course, we'll get the traditional or expected output from the AWS CLI a few seconds later. And there we go. So as you saw in the background, we do have an instance that was created. And in the foreground here, you could see that you've received the expected output from the run instances command. And it's giving us all of the various information about this instance that was just created. And if we flip back to the Symphony interface here in my browser, I can take a look at the virtual machine that was just created. And it's been created with the appropriate size volume in block storage, our equivalent of EBS, assigned to the appropriate networks with the correct security groups, etc. And had I used some of the optional flags, I could fill in a lot more of these different tabs as well. Right now, it was created online, and so it is up and running, and we can go and connect to it. And what we'll see is the initial boot of a Windows 2012 machine that was built from a sysprept image. So we'll go through the typical startup commands, and then it will jump to the settings screen for 2012 R2. And there we go. So here you were able to see an example of using the AWS CLI and the run instances command to create a new instance of a virtual machine within a Symphony cluster.